Would you like to know the secret to a long-term intimate partner relationship where love is the key? Well, the following video provides the answer with a simple two-part methodology. How is this possible? The teachings of the Buddha form the basis for self-management of suffering, a core element of the methodology which can be described as follows. Part 1, Buddha suffering management. Part 2, love times. 12, which comprises the following: 12 behaviors and actions within the relationship on the part of both partners. 1, trust. 2, commitment. 3, affection. 4, appreciation. 5, empathy. 6, friendship. 7, physical intimacy. 8, compromise. 9, respect. 10, kindness. 11, quality time. And 12, generosity. As we know, falling in love and being in love is perhaps the most intense, satisfying, and sustaining relationship a person can have, outside of that with their children. It is the most intense, sustaining, satisfying, and often longest such relationship. It can also be the most heartbreaking and traumatic. Why? Because our emotions emit energy, which is transmitted outside of our body to intimate partners and family, whether we like it or not. We cannot hide them, and science has proven this little-known fact. Therefore, if we ask our partner out of true concern for their well-being, "Is everything okay?" and they answer, "Yes, everything is fine, no problem," they may in fact be lying and not realize it. Their true state of emotional energy could be negative in one of the following forms. First, hidden from them deep within their subconscious, but exposed through energy transmission to their partner. Second, hidden by them in an effort of deception. Thirdly, masked by them in seeking to protect their partner from the impact of that negative energy. This can prove problematic in a partnership. Both partners need to be aware of this unexpected, yet inevitable exposure. In engaging in an intimate relationship, we both knowingly and, in part, unknowingly open ourselves up for reception by others. Of course, this is fine when our emotional energy is neutral or positive, such as when we are happy, but problematic when it is negative and toxifying. Therefore, a partner relationship needs to be nourished, cherished, and recognized for what it is, as do the constraints placed upon it, whether meaningfully or not. It must be proactively worked upon. Maintaining and sustaining an intimate partner relationship creates benefits for both parties, regardless of sex or gender identity. The benefits can be physical, psychological, and spiritual. For example, scientific experiments reveal to us that following arguments between intimate partners, autoimmune defenses are lowered, especially for women. Reality also reveals the commonality of relationship breakdown, divorce, and sadness all around, before and after separation. The extent of relationship breakdown currently stands at around 56% within Western societies. It is therefore worth considering a means to sustain the magic of falling in love and being in love. We do not want to reach a stage where the reality of that fact is questioned by one or other or both parties, leading to dissipation of connection, separation, and intimate relationship end. There is something significant in regard to achieving the long-term sustainability of an infinite partner relationship. That thing is self-management of one's own suffering. The teachings of the Buddha are considered herein to be fundamental in dealing with this. Self-care, self-knowledge, and self-management of suffering are key to a long, happy, healthy life, both within and outside of a partner relationship. Everyone is ultimately responsible for achieving that throughout their life, as suffering is encountered along the way. Self-knowledge is another vital element, and usually associated with the aging process and the getting of wisdom through experience. Using the directed teachings of the Buddha, and with increasing confidence in oneself, the world can be faced and the challenges of suffering addressed. In managing them, one can set them aside for periods or move on from others, thus releasing the partner relationship from the burden of external suffering. The relationship is therefore more likely to be addressed mindfully, with both partners focused on its sustainability. Support for suffering management may come from various quarters, such as teachers, intimate partners, children and family, friends, or community. However, in order to manage suffering, the buck ultimately stops with the individual. One cannot simply blame the outside world for suffering faced and unhappiness felt, or look to others for its cessation. Individual suffering may depend on one's nature or nurture, and especially childhood and early adult experience, which may induce trauma that persists throughout one's lifetime. The role of parents can be key, emphasizing the impact of the presence or lack of love towards a child. A lacking can give rise to suffering in the form of ongoing trauma and diminished mental well-being. Self-care and knowledge of self are therefore key to long-term contentment and attainment of happiness, such that an individual can then bring that self-awareness into their partner relationship and not add to suffering in the other. Attachment to an individual can become the ultimate focus in one's life at any point in time, on par with the role as parent. If successful, this leads to an individual happiness arising out of the management of personal suffering. Of course, Suffering cannot simply be eliminated. However, it can be managed and the differences between the sexes acknowledged in the process. As Kate Bush expounded in her hit song Running Up That Hill, a deal with God, whilst it would be ideal to make such a deal to swap places with one's partner in order to, for a time at least, understand the perspective of the other, such a deal is not possible. Within this video, the presenter has made use of and been heavily influenced by female counselors and commentators such as Karen Seitz, Laura Howe, and Mayim Bialik, in order to somewhat balance the views of influential historic male commentators on relationship matters, including Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. Arising out of this, the methodology presented below is termed Buddha Suffering Management plus Love times 12. It aims to be sex and gender neutral. In outlining the methodology, it should be noted that reciprocity is key in any intimate partner relationship, for the needs of both parties are reasonable and necessary if it is to remain healthy, loving, and long-term. One partner cannot dominate or ignore the needs of the other. Both are equal. In the parent relationship, the role is often simply carer, teacher, and guide. The complex nature of the partner relationship is different and little appreciated. Aspects of the depth of significance of physical and psychological attachment, which are key elements of the partner relationship, were revealed in 2012 by neuroscientists and psychologists Levine and Heller. They stated, and I quote, "Numerous studies show that once we become attached to someone, the two of us form one physiological unit. Our partner regulates our blood pressure, our heart rate, our breathing, and the levels of hormones in our blood. We are no longer separate entities." The emphasis on differentiation that is held by most of today's popular psychology approaches to adult relationships does not hold water from a biology perspective. Dependency is a fact. It is not a choice or preference. End of quote. The rejection of traditional counseling and partner relationship treatments, as noted in the previous paragraph, will be seen throughout this video due to the nature of the methodology presented. The element of dependency mentioned in the above quote is another word for the whole "do you have my back?" plea on the part of partners. The 12 reasonable and required partner relationship needs and actions listed above were highlighted in a 2024 YouTube video by English counselor Laura Howe. It can be seen from the list that many of the items are closely related and, in fact, form a holistic whole that encompasses much of what is entailed in describing falling in love and being in love. They merely codify things that are already known and experienced by couples. The 12 needs and actions relate to both individuals forming a partnership, whether male and female, or other gender mixes. The How video also presents 4 actions required in order to obtain legitimate and necessary intimate relationship needs outside of the specific methodology presented in the current video. These include identifying your needs clearly to yourself, communicating them to your partner, taking care of yourself, and working out who you are dealing with. It is important to address these needs and the situation faced within a partnership with loving kindness and compassion, and maintain an open perspective regarding both sides of the situation. Real, uncensored, open communication between the two is required. The walls limiting such communication between the partners, and which are often built up over years, must be torn down. Beyond this, 2 YouTube video interviews linked below and presented by actress and neuroscientist Mayim Bialik, Amy of the Big Bang Theory, reinforce the health and well-being attributes of a long-term, loving relationship, as opposed to experiencing solitude, relationship breakdown, and the resultant negative physical and psychological impacts arising therein. The first video deals with the causes of affairs and divorce and offers a recipe for relationship success. The second video interview looks at the science behind enhanced physical intimacy in all its forms between intimate partners. As noted in the Love times 12 listings above, physical intimacy is key to the sustainability of an intimate partner relationship. In fact, all 12 elements are vital to sustainability, with the absence of one or more threatening this. Physical intimacy in a partnership can range from a simple phone call, being in the same room together, physical touch such as holding hands and embracing, and ultimately sexual intimacy, as in kissing and intercourse, the latter of which can also entail some degree of psychological openness and attachment beyond the physical elements. All parties place a varying degree of emphasis on physical intimacy during the life of a partnership, and in many instances, its absence can be the seeming root cause of relationship breakdown. This brings up the question, why do individuals in intimate partnerships have affairs? The main reason is that the partnership is failing, and that the person, after consideration, looks for a replacement, even though they may still be in the partnership. Why don't they leave? Answer: because loneliness within the partnership is often viewed as better than being alone and separate from loved ones, which may in fact include the partner. The resulting breakup can then take 3 forms, 2 of which may be devastating to the aggrieved partner. 1, leaving without telling their partner why. 2, departing following a period of discussion in which they tell their partner why they are not happy, but no solution is reached. And 3, ending the relationship following open communication and coming to the realization that the partnership has broken down, thereby agreeing to separate for the good of both. The latter does not mean that they do not still have deep feelings for each other. It simply means that the partnership is not a truly intimate one, and that the Buddha suffering management and love times 12 methodology is not being applied by one or both, or has failed. The elusive and broad concept of happiness is also key here. Happy individuals will sustain a happy partner relationship. But happiness comes from within, not without. Both partners are ultimately responsible for their own happiness in the knowledge that the external environment is often the source of suffering. This is reinforced in a short video from American counselor Karen Seitz, wherein the message is quite stark and confronting, arising in large part out of Seitz's first-hand experience and professional engagement with both men and women. It urges men to stop trying to make their wives happy, just as it implies the complete opposite, namely that both partners should want to achieve the same goal in tandem. It cannot be one-sided. Each partner needs to achieve a level of happiness on their own. They can then bring to the relationship in order to enable it to be a happy one, and together increase the level of happiness therein. This philosophy ties in with Buddhist teachings around managing suffering. Another view from Seitz suggests men are problem solvers and women are pain avoiders. This is analogous to the well-known fight or flight behavior in humans, which can also apply to both partners at various times due to the circumstances arising. This philosophy also ties in with much of the early 20th century writings and teachings of Freud and Jung. Associated with this is the use of emotion to avoid conflict, and the emotional dysregulation commonly exhibited by women, as suggested by Seitz. In being emotional, it is noted that core issues can be left unaddressed. A process of calm, self-reflection, and open communication can actually provide a solution and enable individuals to address issues and eventually move on or manage them. This requires leaving elements of personal suffering to one side as other parts of life are dealt with. This is instead adopting an emotional and aggressive or blame stance, with issues being avoided and never resolved. Of course, both sexes can exhibit such behaviors. This flies in the face of much recent psychological and psychiatric practice, where emotional release is encouraged rather than openly facing suffering. Unfortunately, the reality is that, to quote one counselor, there's no feeling in being emotional. An emotion can simply and often be used to defer taking action and addressing feelings. In summary, and in taking on board all the above information, the presenter offers a two-phase solution for achieving and sustaining a long-term, intimate partner relationship. The two parts are suffering self-management through the application of Buddhist principles and techniques, and love times 12, with the actions and obligations therein outlined above. The first action involves implementation of a strategy of removing personal suffering from the partner relationship through direct intent on the part of both partners. It involves self-management of that suffering by the person experiencing the suffering, increasing their awareness and understanding of it, and therefore ultimately accepting responsibility for its management. This removes from the relationship the threat of blame being cast upon the other, or the other being tasked with solving their partner's suffering. The task of suffering management must rest substantially outside the partner relationship, though it can be discussed compassionately within. The primary methodology applied to the relief of suffering is development of an understanding of the teachings of Buddha, especially those around suffering which are focused on this. The simple act of acceptance of one's behaviors and actions are an important first step. Looking inward alongside the contemporary process of mindfulness, and with the help of devices such as diaries and journals, which enable one to record life events and go back over them to support later learnings, enables one to address the issue of the management of suffering going forward. The second element is to recognize the significance of the partner relationship. It must be treated as a separate entity, removed from other aspects of one's normal life, which nevertheless must be dealt with and may include their own elements of suffering. Key is the effort to ensure that individual suffering is not brought to bear upon the relationship in a negative and toxic way. Elements of one's suffering must be secreted away to the degree where the actual relationship can breathe and develop without being weighed down by the intrusion of a partner as personal suffering. The Love Times 12 action list will guide its implementation in clearly identifying to the partners the actions and behaviors they must both engage in for the relationship to grow and reach a level of sustainability that is desirable for both parties. In combination, both strategies outlined above will support the nourishment of intimate partner relationships. Without achievement of suffering self-management, the often toxic nature of partner suffering will destroy it. With a will on the part of both parties, behaviors which can negatively impact upon partner relationships and which may have developed subconsciously since birth, such as trauma, can be excluded wholly or partially, or at least held at bay for a period from the intimate environment of the relationship, resulting in enhanced well-being for all those involved. With the Buddhist suffering management plus love times 12 methodology, achievement of a long-term, loving, intimate partner relationship is possible.